Hey guys, Razorblade Mango here. So, what on God's green earth is giving me the desire to pull myself away from Red Dead Redemption 2 in order to record a video that is not about Red Dead Redemption 2? And maybe this isn't the best time to throw this video up, but, this is my channel and I will talk about what I wish. So, today, I wanted to actually do a special Popcorn Mango about a certain series of films that are very near and dear to my heart and were a big part of my childhood to early adulthood, my high school years to the second half of my high school years. So that series is none other than the Harry Potter series, which I really don't know how to begin with this. And I still, even after watching these movies, because I have not seen these movies in about 7 years. I hadn't. Until I found a Blu-ray of the, collection in my closet. And I thought, you know what? I really want to watch these movies, and that thought popped into my head when that new Harry Potter game got leaked about a month ago or whenever, and I thought, wow, I have not seen these movies in a long time, and I've kind of been holding off on rewatching them out of some misguided fear that I might have grown out of them, or I might not like them anymore. So that, I think, prevented me from giving them a fresh rewatch and kind of holding on to that old, very old perspective I have of them. And when I found that the Blu-ray set in my closet, I thought, okay, this is a sign. It's time. It's time to rewatch these movies. So, I don't care if this shit is going to go on for an hour or whatever. I don't give a fuck if this is one of my lowest viewed videos ever. I want to talk about Harry Potter. In the fucking week of Red Dead Redemption 2, yes, I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I've poured, I think 30 plus hours into it. I'm not even close to being ready to talk about it in full. So, that video is going to come much later. I'm not IGN. I'm not Kotaku. I don't get access to these games before they come out. I buy them like the rest of you guys. And that's how I like it. So, I need time on that, please, before I make a video about Red Dead Redemption 2. So, in the meantime, I want to talk about Harry Potter. And I guess I'll go with this in chronological order, because that's really the best way I can do this. This is the most organized way I can do it. And I grew up watching these movies, like I said, and they have a very special place in not only my heart, like I mentioned, but in my history as a movie lover. So I present to you guys the latest, opinion, my most recent opinion on all 8 of these movies. So without further ado, I guess we'll start with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or if it's called Harry Potter, I think it's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone everywhere else. I don't know why they don't why did they just keep it as Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone? That's fine. I could pronounce that as a kid. So, like I said, I was really apprehensive about rewatching these movies because I did not want these movies that I grew up watching, and I loved most of them, spoiled by a much lower opinion of them. However, as far as Sorcerer's Stone goes, I really had nothing to fear. In fact, I appreciate this movie now more than I ever have as an adult. It's still, after all this time, after nearly, I think it's coming on the 17th anniversary of this movie being released, close to it. Yeah, fucking November 16th, 18 days until the 17-year anniversary of this series when it began. Shit. Yeah, this is a great movie. great movie now more than ever. And it's extremely entertaining and funny and filled with these great moments that we don't get in modern movies anymore, where it has this childlike wonder and awe and joy to it. So much of that is missing from modern blockbusters nowadays. This sense of awe at what I'm looking at. A lot of it is just filmed so, shallowly and mechanically, and it just kind of going through the numbers. This is a movie that respects how and takes into consideration how an audience member should feel watching these movies. Because the reason that we are excited by this world and the reason that we become entranced by it is because Harry Potter is. And he is our avatar in this movie. He is coming into this world at exactly the same time as we are. So through his joy, through his sense of childlike awe, it becomes our joy and our awe as well. And that's like such a key component of these not only this movie, but of like all the movies, especially the early ones. And so much of it is so funny, and the action is really good. Good set pieces. The special effects are a little still 2001. We were still working out how CGI works. And it's a stark contrast to a lot of the practical effects in this one. Like the model of Hogwarts to, like the candles actually, I think the candles actually did float in the Great Hall or something like that. They brought in a lot of illusionists to create practical effects for these movies, to give it like a tangible idea of magic. And it just looks so much better compared to like the CGI of the troll and the CGI of the wizard chess pieces. So I think the special effects, the CGI get a lot better as the series went along, but here it's definitely noticeable, not in a good way. But what I never really noticed, or maybe just could never even understand or admire about this movie, are the quiet moments. I never could appreciate those until now. My favorite one is just very simple. It's right after Harry Potter's first day at Hogwarts. He's sitting in the window of his new room, his new home, petting Hedwig and simply just staring out the window, and just the look in his eyes of like he's just processing this completely new place, this new world to him. Like his whole life he's been in just the regular world, but now he's seeing this world of magic and wonder and all these like cool things that are possible now to him. And he's just processing it all. And that I love that scene. I think it's so simple and it's so powerful at the same time. And it really it struck me emotionally. Like I kind of got a little choked up a bit during this movie. Same with the scene where he's sitting in front of the mirror of Earset, I think it's called, the mirror that Dumbledore has. And he's staring into it, and he sees, the mirror shows us what our hearts truly desire. And it's his parents that he wants. Like, he wants a sense of family, because he's never had that his whole life. Or as much as he can remember, he's never had that. And he's just longing to experience real love from these parents that he never truly got a chance to know. And that says a lot about his character. Just it's like without words, it's just him staring at the mirror, looking at his parents, and he can't touch them physically. He can only just see a reflection of it, like a memory, like something that we lost in the past, but we can't reach out and touch it. It just forever is there. But it's not. The scene doesn't focus on the sadness. The scene is sad, but it doesn't focus on it. It's not miserable. It's just, it's part of life. It's just we lose people and we want to see them again, but we can't. And that to me is what that scene represents. And scenes like that just stand out above all the funny one-liners and the beautiful imagery. Stuff like that is what makes these films last in my mind. And speaking of memory, it was really weird watching this for the first time in like this movie specifically. I hadn't seen this in like well over a decade. It'd been a very long time. And I didn't remember a lot of specific things. I think the thing that I probably should have remembered was the bit where Voldemort's sucking the blood out of that dead unicorn, which that was fucking creepy. It was awesome, but it was creepy. But I still felt this sense of familiarity from it all. And it just, all the memories just came like rushing back to me as I was watching this. And I think those final two lines say it best, where Hermione says, "It feels weird," and I wrote this down. She says, "It feels weird to be going home." And Harry Potter just simply looks off in the distance at Hagrid and goes, "I'm not going home. Not really." And similar to how Harry Potter feels about Hogwarts, this movie feels like a homecoming to me. It feels like I'm entering a second home. A cinematic homecoming, to get very pretentious. Yeah, like I get the same feeling watching this movie or watching these films that I did with like whenever I used to go to my grandparents' house, or whenever I used to go to Disneyland. It's this like sense of childhood safety almost. Like this it's like a comfort blanket watching this. Like I know I'm in good hands when I watch this movie. For a moment, I can just drift out of my reality and just go into this one and feel great. So, this is a fantastic movie. I mean, I've been talking about this one for about, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 minutes now. I said I'll take as long as I want. But that's really all I got left to say about Sorcerer's Stone. And I love Sorcerer's Stone. I think it's great. Moving on to the next one is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which, from the moment I first saw it, back in 2002, I have always thought, not only is this the best Harry Potter movie, but this was one of my all-time favorite films. Like, I adored it. I must have watched this thing countless times on VHS. And now, well, I still love it. I still think it's a great movie, but not anywhere near as much as I used to. Similar to the moments of happiness that are in Sorcerer's Stone, I've always loved the much darker and more frightening parts of this movie. I think they are handled very effectively for both kids and adults. Just from like the voice of the basilisk creeping through the walls to the spiders that chased Harry and Ron in the Forbidden Forest. They're just cool. Like similar with the Sorcerer's Stone where Voldemort's like sucking the blood out of the unicorn. Stuff like that is why I like scarier kids movies, because they are a part of childhood in a sense. Like, you know, we're exposed to scary things, but the reason we overcome them is because we understand them. And I wasn't necessarily scared by Chamber of Secrets when I was 9. I was like, I think I was past that point in my life where I'd be scared by this stuff. But I just thought it was cool. I was just like, wow, like this, the overall like sinister atmosphere of it all really stuck with me after all these years. And they're the catalyst behind this thrilling and interesting mystery at the heart of the movie. Because this movie reminds me of Indiana Jones. Speaking of another series I loved as a kid, this movie reminds me a lot of Indiana Jones. Specifically, something like Temple of Doom or Raiders of the Lost Ark. The characters are exploring and researching and uncovering an ancient mystery and going on adventures that are way out of their league. There are little kids in this giant world, this ancient evil that they cannot possibly understand yet. And like the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail in the Last Crusade, there's this never-ending mysticism in the air regarding the titular Chamber of Secrets. And all the build-up to it leads to one really satisfying payoff in this movie. And it goes without saying, I think the special effects still hold up in this one and are definitely improved over the shoddy CGI in Sorcerer's Stone. I love everything, just the design of the Chamber of Secrets itself, and the fight against the Basilisk is like one of the coolest things. Like that shit blew my mind when I was 9 when I saw that. That stuff is just like straight out of Indiana Jones. My favorite moment in the movie, one of my favorite moments in the series, is just when Harry's fighting the Basilisk, and it's that like the standard action movie where the hero drops the weapon and the villain comes in for the final blow. He grabs the sword at just the right moment and like shoves it through the Basilisk's head. And just like as a 9-year-old in there, like I had strict parents or a strict mom when I was a kid, so I wasn't allowed to see a lot of like PG-13 or R or bloody stuff with her. But her like taking me to see this movie where like the sword gets shoved through this snake's head and blood is like caked on the sword, and there's quite a bit of blood in that scene, and I loved it, and it never fails to make me just go fuck yeah, and like pump my fist every time that happens. It's just like childlike glee watching this giant snake get a sword shoved through his head, and the blood on the sword is just icing on the cake for me. So yeah, this is a fantastic movie. Not an all-time favorite anymore, but it is definitely my second favorite Harry Potter movie, and we'll get to my favorite one later on. But for now, we're going to go to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which this could be my favorite one. Could be my favorite film in the series. If not for some nagging issues I have with some of the critical moments. So, this is my favorite Harry Potter book. I have read The Prisoner of Azkaban way more times than any of the stories, any of the other books. Like I remember like reading this thing all the time when I was in the car, and I like when we were going somewhere, I would just bring Prisoner of Azkaban and start reading it. I love this book. I still love it. So naturally, I'm very familiar with how certain scenes play out in the book versus how they're paced and written in the movie. And even back when I first saw it, I always thought the revelation of Sirius Black's true intentions and all the stuff with Peter Pettigrew, I always thought that was oddly paced in the movie. It feels like they are moving way too quickly, and it's underwritten. And these key moments, just they rush through them almost, and you gotta let stuff like that breathe. Like in a span of 5 minutes, Harry Potter goes from learning the truth about Sirius Black, to learning the truth about Lupin, to learning the truth about Peter Pettigrew, deciding that Peter Pettigrew should live, and it's acted out. The acting is fine. The acting is not the problem. It's how it's paced, how it's written. It just feels underwhelming when it should be this big, crucial moment, and it just needed more room to breathe, for God's sakes. And stuff like that just always bothered me, and it still bothers me in this movie. With that being said, this is still one hell of a fucking movie. This is when the series really started to embrace the creative liberties that could be taken with certain elements of the source material. And Alfonso Cuarón, who I'm not really a big Alfonso Cuarón fan, I think he nailed the balance of both the traditional and his own quirks. Like the traditional Harry Potter shit is still there, but it clearly is an Alfonso Cuarón movie. It is somebody else with their own, somewhat their own interpretation of Hogwarts. And I think the scene that really says it best is the night bus, which that in the book, it just feels like, oh, it's the night bus. Harry Potter's getting picked up. He's getting dropped off in Diagon Alley, all that. But in this movie, like the night bus with the fucking Jamaican shrunken head and the bizarre, hilarious shit that is in that scene, it's so great. And it like Harry Potter getting like stopping in front of the old lady, Harry Potter flying against the window, it's like a comedy movie almost. And it's even though this is like one of the darker ones of the beginning of when it's like dipping its toe into the darker elements of the series, there is still enough humor that's not distracting, that's not funny, that is actually really good and really, complements the humor to it all. It's just, I forget Fantastic Beasts. I don't give a fuck about those movies. I want a movie about the Night Bus. Just give me a standalone Night Bus movie. That'd be great. And on the subject of atmosphere, this movie is just amazing to look at. The first two movies are beautiful in their own way, but this one really kicks it up a notch with the incredible lighting and the beautiful, gorgeous scenery. And like Cuarón himself, I've never been really a fan of his visuals. Like, they always come across as him smelling his own farts with like the long takes and the oh, look at me, I'm so important, ooh. But he's on fucking point here. Dead on point. For example, I love the way he films and paces the first time we see a Dementor. Like, it's brilliant. It's genuinely terrifying, and it looks stunning. There's that beautiful visual of the icy cold cabin window door, and the hand, just like the Dementor, just slowly pacing up to it, and the hand just slowly extending out and opening it. It's so creepy, and I love it. I love the way that was filmed. It's brilliant. And of course, I can't move on to the next movie without mentioning the Time Turner sequences, which those must have been a nightmare to plan, film, edit, but all that hard work makes for one of the very best moments in the series. It's funny, suspenseful, and it's moments of like quiet, unspoken development of friendship between Harry and Hermione. Like the moment when Harry is like looking off in the distance and dreaming, telling her that, oh, Sirius is my godfather and I can go live with him and we'll move out to the country and it will be great. And seeing Harry Potter just kind of have this look in his eye of like hope for the future, and Hermione kind of looking at him on the side with this like, not like in her eyes you can tell that she wants to tell Harry that it's like, foolish to dream of that, but she kind of lets him dream, have this one small moment of hope in his life, and it's a great moment. So unlike Chamber of Secrets, my opinion of Prisoner of Azkaban really hasn't changed all that much from when I first saw it. I think this is probably the only one out of the bunch that hasn't changed, like dramatically changed in some way for me. It's a great visualization of my favorite Harry Potter book, but I wish it was longer, and I wish the critical moments were done differently. It would be a fucking masterpiece either way. Without those two problems, this would be my favorite Harry Potter movie, hands down. So, moving on to Goblet of Fire, which, to be honest, this was actually the only one in the series that I wasn't looking forward to rewatching. I was very eager to rewatch, Azkaban and the Deathly Hallows movies, but Goblet of Fire to me represents kind of the lull in the story. And I know that sounds weird considering this is the one that finally reveals Voldemort's, his form. But I just really couldn't get into this one, like thematically or visually or even narratively. It's, don't get me wrong. This is still a good movie. It is a good movie with quite a few enjoyable moments and really cool shit, especially at the end with Voldemort. But it's lacking that, that magic that I feel with the last three movies. When I take this movie as a whole, it just feels really clunky and disjointed, and it's over even at like 2.5 hours long. Like, I couldn't believe it was 2.5 hours long. It feels like it's over far too quickly, and a lot of it just feels episodic. None of it feels like a cohesive whole. Like, you've got your standard funny moments in the Harry Potter action, but the pacing never makes all that fit in with the really dark and tragic stuff that they throw in at the beginning and they throw in at the end. But like I said, some of the scenes are great. Hell, I'd even go so far as to say some of them are spectacular. It's just the emotional through line isn't there, unlike Sorcerer's Stone and Azkaban. And it makes for a strangely underwhelming, kind of muted viewing of it. And visually and musically, it's just a big step down from Azkaban. Like, once John Williams left the series, like, the quality in music really dipped. Besides the original stuff that he composed, like, I don't think any of the scores from any of the next few movies come even close to matching the music from the first three, and that's a shame. I really wish John Williams had stuck around to compose the score for the rest of the movies, but creative burnout and all that, which I understand. And I'm glad Mike Newell never really went on to direct more of these movies, because it just doesn't have it visually, like, unlike Cuarón, unlike Columbus, unlike Yates. He just doesn't have that. But I mean, I guess I should say some positive things, because I guess it sounds like I'm trashing this movie, which I'm not. The cast is great. Brandon Gleeson, perfect as Mad-Eye Moody. Robert Pattinson, not annoying, genuinely likable as Cedric Diggory. Huge shout out to Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort. Like, he's amazing. Like, I love how he takes such pleasure in torturing and talking shit to Harry Potter without turning into this generic cartoon villain. Like, he is genuinely scary when he comes out. And like besides that, the other dark moment I really love is when Peter Pettigrew slices off his own hand for the ceremony, the ritual to bring Voldemort back. Like, it's such a visceral moment for this series, when it really becomes obvious that, oh shit, we're really getting to some dark shit here. Love the way it's edited, love the sound design on that. Just that one moment of him slicing his hand off, I love that. Also, I really like the Yule Ball stuff. Like, to me, it's fucking hysterical how Harry and Ron can risk their lives going on these dangerous adventures, and yet they're absolutely petrified to ask a girl out to the dance. Like, that to me is how's always been funny. Harry Potter can fight this giant fucking snake, but he's so awkward when it comes to romance. It's so relatable too. I love that. It's so relatable. And unfortunately, the Yule Ball in this reflects my own experience with my first middle school dance. And I love how insecure Ron is about Hermione getting asked to the dance by one of his heroes, and that she's upset that Ron didn't ask her first. I love, like, these actors are so good. Like Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, they all play these perfectly. Like, this franchise is very lucky that these three leads matured into actual good actors, because so many child actors do not transition into good adult acting, and these guys are actually really good actors, and it shows how great they all are at showing their own characters growing up as well. Like, it's so good. Just the movie itself, I wish was better, because there are some things in it that I really like. It's just, overall, I think it is definitely the weakest one in the franchise, for me at least. I know this one has its big fans. So moving on to Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And for a long time, this was the only Harry Potter movie that I did not like. When I first saw it back in 2007, I was 14, and I thought it was bland and meandering, and I felt like I didn't get the good stuff until the end. I walked out like really disappointed. There's just this mediocre movie made from my least favorite book. Well, you also need to keep in mind that I was a fucking idiot back then, because this movie is the most impressive, thematically cohesive, and insightful entry in the series yet. Like, this is the best one thematically out of all of them. Not my favorite one, the best thematically. I need to stress that. Because I don't think this movie is very interesting visually or plot-wise. It's really clunky. I don't like a lot of the stuff they do with Cho Chang in this. She just feels kind of disposable. Yeah, just it's not my favorite one. Definitely not my favorite one, but probably like honestly, like it's a really good movie for one very specific reason. Is that this movie is a really great, powerful exploration of grief. And more specifically, it explores how, like, when we experience grief, how we choose to process it, and the person we become moving forward. Like, think of Voldemort's psychological influence on Harry as the emotions we feel when someone we love dies. Harry is depressed, angry, afraid, lonely, guilty, etc. And if we let these emotions take hold, those feelings can take an enormous toll on us psychologically and can change who we are, like Harry Potter becoming another Voldemort. And that leads into how Harry chooses to process Voldemort's encroaching influence on his mind, aka the grief settling in. At first, Harry Potter has these knee-jerk, angry reactions to things that slightly annoy or aggravate him, and he chooses to isolate himself from Ron and Hermione, or basically his best friends and his family. But after speaking with Luna, she reminds him, and I think Luna is a great character. Like, the actress they got to play her is fantastic. Luna reminds him of something. She reminds him that if Harry Potter succumbs to his negative, self-destructive energy, it will be exactly what Voldemort wants. Voldemort and grief are these non-feeling entities that just want to devour on your negativity. They want to devour on your misery and your sorrow, and your sadness. I burped there. But Harry, what does Harry do? He starts rejoining his friends at dinner, and he starts enjoying the company of those around him, and even focuses his energy on being the leader of Dumbledore's army. Order of the Phoenix consistently puts Harry through the ringer of overcoming his grief and becoming a stronger, healthier, and more confident person. And the final test is when Sirius is killed during the climax. Once again, Harry Potter gives into his grief almost. And proceeds to chase and attack Bellatrix Lestrange, who killed Sirius. This is when Voldemort chooses to strike. Harry Potter is at his most emotionally vulnerable moment. And after this fucking awesome battle with Dumbledore, Voldemort attempts to fully invade Harry's mind, so Dumbledore will have no choice but to kill him. And at first, Voldemort preys on Harry's emotions, the sadness, anger, fear, loneliness, guilt, all that, and it looks like he's about to win. However, Harry remembers that he has a strength far more powerful than grief. His family and his friends. They are his comfort. They are the reason he fights. They are the reason he lives. And instead of giving in to Voldemort, Harry expels him from his mind by reminding himself of the love and happy times that he has had over the last 5 years. Even if they have not lasted, they are memories nonetheless. The loss of a loved one is not the end, because he has more to live for. We have more to live for that are worth living and fighting for. We have people in our lives that need us, that love us, that want us. And in the end, for overcoming this, Harry Potter learns to become a better friend, leader, and person. And that, to me, makes this movie incredibly deep and insightful. And I certainly couldn't appreciate something like that at 14. And for that, I think this movie is very good and not at all mediocre like I remember it being. Next one is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is such a weird movie. despite the really sad things that happen in it, like especially at the conclusion with Dumbledore dying, this is maybe the funniest film out of all of them. I laughed really hard at multiple points, and there is so much wackiness that occurs that I couldn't honestly blame anyone for calling it tonally inconsistent. But I think that's what makes it work, because unlike the Marvel movies, a lot of the newer Marvel movies, humor complements the drama instead of undercutting it. That in turn makes the more serious and melancholic moments hit their mark even harder. The goofier elements are also kind of like a farewell of sorts, because they feel like one final glimpse of the earlier, more carefree and innocent adventures of Harry Potter and his friends before we finally get to the ending. Like, we finally are getting to the really dark, this is it. And I think the stuff that shines from all the comedy is the romance. This is the point where we finally get to see love blossom between, like among all three of the main characters. And although it's the most melodramatic high school drama bullshit imaginable, I still think it's really entertaining and, quite frankly, charming. The usual grand gestures of affection and moments, they're there, but the moments of subtly portrayed friendship, frustration, understanding, heartbreak, and love, I love all that stuff. And I think the one performance that shows it the most in this movie is Emma Watson, who I think is just like in a series of incredible performances. She is incredible in this. Just the small little things she's able to convey with her eyes and facial tics are amazing. And I think, like, she, out of all of these characters, like, among the three, I think she is probably she probably gives the best performance out of all of them when it comes to, like, overall series. Like, I love Emma Watson in this series. She was perfectly cast for Hermione. However, we got the sad stuff. And the one thing I didn't expect going into this is how impactful Dumbledore's death is. For example, when I first saw it, this was the most underwhelming part of the movie for me. This time was very different. Maybe it's because I know how well Dumbledore orchestrated his death for the future, but just seeing his dead body surrounded by all those who cared about him just, like, genuinely brought tears to my eyes. Like Harry Potter, moments like Harry Potter moving Dumbledore's beard away from his face, and McGonagall being the first to raise her wand to shine out the Death Eater symbol, or the Dark Mark, or whatever it's called, in honor of her dead colleague and friend. Those moments are truly heartbreaking. And the final scene is just perfect. It's perfect. It sets the tone for the finale to a T, and it has one of my all-time favorite final lines ever in any movie ever, where Harry Potter just looks out and says, "I never realized how beautiful this place was." Just fucking hell. What a line. Oh my god. Wow. As they look to an uncertain future, as Fawkes, the Dumbledore's pet phoenix, soars above, doing its final sign, like its morning call for its master, as it just, all three of them band together and just look into the future. And that's what brings us to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Which, this movie, it's only one half of a much larger story. But it remains one of my favorite films in the series, because I think it does a damn near flawless job of making the viewer feel like the end is truly coming. Like, the whole beginning has a great opening with like things like Hermione wiping her parents' memory of her in case she never comes back, and Harry looking at the cupboard under the stairs one final time. It really gives this idea, this sense of how far these characters have come and the really dangerous mission that lies ahead for them. And even though I knew exactly what was going to happen, I still felt this horrible sense of unease and worry. Like, the air is just thick with tension because we know Harry, Ron, and Hermione are always one step away from being captured, tortured, and or killed. It doesn't help that we see multiple characters, like even beloved characters, like get tortured in really disturbing ways and die on screen. Like, forget what the series has thought of as dark before in the past. Here's when the series fully steps into the adult world, and it's not at all what it was in the first films. Like, the idea of dark in the first few films, they're child's play compared to this. And a common complaint I see with this movie is that, annoyingly, is that it is boring. It's a boring movie because all they do is walk and go camping in the woods. I could not disagree more. I think the time they spend in the woods together is when the film is at its very best. At those points, it becomes almost an atmospheric character drama, and I love that kind of stuff. Them being stuck in the middle of fucking nowhere visualizes their isolation and really stresses that these three are on their own. This is it. Dumbledore is dead. Hogwarts has fallen, and they face the constant threat of being hunted down by snatchers. They are never truly safe. So many gorgeous atmospheric moments of them walking against large natural scenery really drives home how small they must feel, how small they truly are in this scenario. And when they're walking through the wilderness and the desolate urban environments that are lit so beautifully, and a great atmospheric touch is like the radio playing in the background, the names of the deceased witches and wizards. It's just haunting. It's amazing. And the thing that I've always loved about this movie, like the one scene I've been looking forward to talking about the most, and it's my favorite moment in the entire series, it's the Oh Children dance. This happens when, after Ron abandons them, Harry and Hermione are at their lowest point. They have no idea what to do next. Time is running out. They've lost one of their best friends, and Hermione especially has lost the person she loves. And it sucks, and it's depressing. However, one night, Harry Potter hears Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds' Oh Children playing on the radio. And he simply invites her to dance with him. And in this moment, for just a moment, they forget about all their worries and just have fun. Not only is it a joyful, hopeful moment in a movie filled with hopelessness, it's this great callback to something Dumbledore said in Prisoner of Azkaban. And I wrote it down right here. He says in Prisoner of Azkaban, "But you know, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light." Throughout this entire series, Harry has learned so much from Dumbledore. About his history, about Voldemort's history, about new spells, stuff like that. But he also remembered the simpler lessons that Dumbledore taught not only him, but everybody. In their moment of darkness, Harry decides to turn on the light, to give Hermione a moment of happiness. Even if it is fleeting, it's a moment nonetheless. And because of how dark the overall tone is, this beautiful moment shines all the more brighter. And I honestly, like, I get like a little teary-eyed just thinking about it. Like, it's an amazing scene. It was never in the book, and whoever came up with that idea for that scene is a genius. But it's not the only beautiful moment. The scene where Harry and Hermione visit Godric's Hollow and stand in front of Harry's parents' grave is just pure atmosphere. It's the snow and the lights and the background sounds of people singing in a pub and the simple exchange of Merry Christmas between the two friends. And it's just, I was overwhelmed by this. And to me, a scene like that it's a testament to the power of filmmaking. And I think David Yates was, like, after, rocky start with visually with Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince, I think he finally gets it with these last two movies. The really amazing atmospheric stuff that I missed from the last few movies. So in conclusion, I have always loved this movie. Still do. It's unlike anything else in the series, and David Yates executed it brilliantly. Which finally brings us to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Which, I guess the appropriate place to start here would be to admit that I've always thought this movie was one of the most disappointing movies I've ever seen. Like, when I first saw it, I genuinely had a hard time admitting to myself that I found it deeply flawed and not at all what I expected nor wanted from this finale. And I think for this reason, it's why I didn't watch this series for a very long time. But it turns out all this movie needed was time. Like, I've grown up, both as a person and as a movie lover, since I was 18 when I first saw this. And what I look for in movies now, or in art in general, is very different now compared to then. And at long last, after spending, I spent a week, I watched one movie a day. After a week going through one of the most influential series in my life, I now view this movie as the best film in it. I fucking love this movie. It sucks that I couldn't embrace this movie when it was in the theaters, but I guess better late than never in this case. So, David Yates and a screenwriter, Steve Kloves, who I don't think I've given a shout out to in this entire thing. Steve Kloves, well done. I tip my hat to you, sir. They impeccably weave together everything that the 7 films have been building up to and deliver the last stand against evil we have been waiting for. Every element of the film fires on all cylinders. The writing, the acting, the direction of the action, the fuck yeah moments, the cinematography, the music, all of it combines into one absorbing film that held my attention the whole way through. These films have mostly had superb pacing, and I still can't believe these movies are almost over 2.5 hours long each, because they certainly don't feel like it. They have some of the best pacing in any movie I've ever watched. And interspersed with the terrific set pieces and some of the best special effects this series has to offer are the character-driven, subtle, and downright like tear-jerking moments that I've come to love. The film's heart and soul never gets lost among all the action. And the battle scenes are made all the more thrilling and suspenseful because we actually give a shit about the outcome. Like with the first Deathly Hallows, we understand what's at stake. And it hits hard when characters we know and love die. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom though. Like, even with all the death and destruction, the film still finds room for humor and moments of levity. My favorite moment is when Harry returns to Hogwarts and the classic theme kicks in as he's given a hero's welcome by his friends and peers. Like, it's a great moment where it's so great. I also love the moment when Snape and McGonagall like duel and the theme kicks in again when McGonagall relights the fires, and it's this great visualization of the spark of hope that is overcoming Hogwarts. It's been going through hell the whole school year, and Harry has finally returned to give this place hope, to rally the troops together. Simple visual storytelling like that with the lights coming back on, or relit, so to speak. I also love the moment where Harry and Luna stare out this glass window, and the shield that the Hogwarts defenders are creating reflects across their faces through the window. And most people would understandably never give a second thought to such a small moment like that. But to me, it shows how damn well Yates understands subtle visual storytelling. It's phenomenal how well he's grasped that in these last few movies. But this movie is also very bittersweet, and it's got some pretty heavy, gut-wrenching moments. Lavender Brown gets killed, and she's having her flesh eaten by a Death Eater. Snape in the flashback cradling and sobbing over Lily Potter's dead body. It's that in particular is heartbreaking. Harry saying goodbye to Ron and Hermione before he goes to face Voldemort and his death head on. No matter how quick or prolonged these moments are, they just tore at my soul. And I got very emotional at like multiple points. I'm not just talking about like choked up, teary-eyed. I'm talking about like ugly cry. And I don't ugly cry a lot during movies, but I was a fucking mess. Like, it's a very emotional movie, but it's one that doesn't feel like it's stabbing you with a cattle prod to cry on cue. These moments are fully earned. They earn those moments. And over the past few weeks, like the past few weeks going through these movies, I've been trying to really understand what this series means to me. And I don't even think I fully truly understand it and why it has stayed with me for so long. However, watching the final scene made it sort of click in my head. Like, as Ron, Harry, and Hermione, now adults, see their kids off on the Hogwarts Express, the classic Leaving Hogwarts music from the first two films plays at just the right moment, and the film fades to black as everything comes full circle, and it shows like one of my friends mentioned that this movie showed him the deepness of parenthood and what it means to be a parent, to pass on the legacy to the next generation. And to me, God, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. That's what this series is. Beyond these characters feeling like family and the world being so fascinating, this series has always been something I could relate to during my childhood and in teenage years. And watching that scene where the train pulls away, it made me feel like my time with this series was ending, but everyone else younger will get to experience it. Like, this series will live forever, hopefully. These movies are just something I could relate to during my childhood, during my formative years, during my teenage years, my high school years, my middle school years. And I realized that these movies were just a great source of inspiration and it's just a huge influence on my imagination and what I love from art now as an adult. And there's this great source of entertainment and comfort, and they'll live on to be appreciated and shared by many people for many years to come. And I take great satisfaction in knowing that this series will live on. So, in conclusion, this is the best film in the series for me. It's taken 7 years to come to that thought, but here we are. I have never appreciated these movies now more than I do now as an adult. Just from a sheer craftsmanship viewpoint and to what they personally mean to me, the Harry Potter series is just amazing. It deserves its iconic status. It still deserves its place near and dear to my heart. And these movies, compared to the junk that comes out now, watching these movies was like such a breath of fresh air. Like it feels like these movies were made by people who actually care, who aren't just in it for a buck. Like the studio is definitely in it for a buck, but great care and detail and love was poured into these movies. It shows in every frame of these movies that people who actually gave a shit made these movies. They feel like they come from completely different planets. They're not setting up new universes. They all work as their own separate individual thing. They're not there having end credit scenes, post credit scenes. We got to set up the next movie. Like it's a television program. These are movies that are beautiful and cinematic and thought-provoking and work on multiple different levels. They feel like they're from different planets. I love the series dearly for that. So, final word from this is just thank you to everyone who worked on this series, everyone who made it possible. Thank you. Thank you. I words cannot express how grateful I am that this series exists. So just thank you. Thank you very much. So that's that. Thank you all for watching. If you stuck through this whole nearly hour-long run through of the Harry Potter movies, thank you. Yeah, this has been a special Popcorn Mango, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.